And so the other big lesson we're going to learn today is not only the importance of being comfortable with the idea of redoing your work for the benefit of your own skills, but also within the program, the lesson today is how to use a set of line work that you've drawn at the top of your design tree for features down below. So how do you reuse your sketches? And it's not difficult. All you have to do is when you activate a additional trim operation, you open up the feature and you reveal the sketch that you want to use, and then you apply that to the property manager for the feature you're trying to adjust. So yeah, so that's why I say it's kind of good news and bad news, right? It's like we're gonna learn, we're gonna really solidify our capability of building super cool organic form using surfaces in SolidWorks, which is a totally, you know, important and technically challenging skill to have in your portfolio and just as a designer in general. Something that'll help you get jobs back in, you know, when you graduate. Oops. But then we're going to just also learn about just the idea of building efficiency into our models. And a lot of the time when you're building a SolidWorks model, the way to build efficiency and kind of clarity into the model is to actually start from scratch. You kind of go down a pathway, find out what you sort of need to have, and then redo your work so that you clarify all your surfaces. So here I am way back up at the top, right at the point where we had started the process in the last class, setting these two custom planes. Now, so that's all good news. So we're gonna get, when we get done with all this stuff, what we end up with is this really clean set of surfaces where all of our fillets will work easily, and we'll have nice clean surfaces in between these edges right here. And when we mirror this thing, you can see that we've got this nice cool arc that comes up here. Let's just mirror it really quick to see what it looks like. Cool. So it's a small little angle down here that we're trying to build into the model, but it's much more representative of what the actual product is. And then ergonomics wise, it makes a lot of sense as well. So when your thumbs wrap around here, it can really dig into this bottom form, and you can pull apart the binoculars and adjust them to your face size and really give yourself the grip you need to get your hands to wrap around the dial and the controls to adjust your focus and stuff like that. So it's a mandatory feature, and it just adds that one little extra cool factor that that our other version was definitely not having. So if we look at these two kind of side by side, you can see that versus, let's see if we just tilt that, see if we can get them both at the same angle. I think that it's pretty clear. The benefit of redoing our work is going to be that we're going to have clean surfaces, we're going to have a cooler look, and we're going to be better CAD designers overall. So how does that sound to everybody? Does anybody want to say anything, or should I just get to work? I wanted to start by saying I know you guys sent me a bunch of really, really great renderings today. Your homework alongside of figuring out this surface blending technique was to come up with your very best renderings. I've started to collect a few of them. I've had a crazy busy day myself, so the best I've got is just to kind of archive them onto my computer. If you haven't gotten your final speaker renders in, get them in as soon as possible. And in our next class, I will have them all put together so we can look at them as a group. I'll put them together into a little multi-page PDF so we can view them in one fell swoop instead of kind of jumping around from one student to the next, kind of each showing their own work. So I didn't want to eat up too much time because, as you guys learned in the last time, you know, this kind of situation can, this kind of technique that we're trying to learn here can, it can backfire pretty easy. So we want to leave ourselves a lot of time in class today to kind of give ourselves the opportunity to run up against any sort of problems that might be headed our way. But like I said, practice makes perfect. So since we've all done this a few times now, it should go faster than it did last time. So. That sound good, guys? You guys ready to go? Anybody is with me?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, cool. Nice. All right then. Well, let's dig in. And yeah, James, in particular, I was thinking of you too, because I think that you had sent me quite a few different kind of like attempts and it didn't work out. I didn't get a chance to get onto my computer until like I did some work this morning and to prep this one file. And then right before class today, I jumped on just to get my computer ready. But I was thinking of you, thinking this would be a good opportunity to just kind of walk through step by step again and kind of double, triple confirm that like you've got it down.
Yeah, no, you're all good. Thanks.
All right, well, let me just do a few things here on my end. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I am going to close down one of my, this is my R4 version here. So let me, and then this here is my kind of latest and greatest R6 version. And I'm not sure that's the one that I want to use either. So let me get myself together and, in fact, you know what we can do? We can just take apart, I'll show you guys a good example of how to take apart a SolidWorks file that's already built and the kind of mess that that can be. Just to kind of show you guys that it is possible to break up a design tree and see how that works. So I'll start with this file. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save this file as a new file name. So if you have your own file, you won't have to go back through so many. But I'm going to save this as an R7 and we'll call it in class. Okay, and so I'm just going to start blatantly just deleting huge swaths of the design tree here to show you guys that's possible. And the way it happens is that SolidWorks just throws a bunch of shade at you. It's just kind of yells at you a lot. Are you sure you want to do that? You say yes, confirm all. And here's our surface knit right here. We want to get rid of that to break up all the surfaces. Deleting a surface knit operation in SolidWorks is the same as doing an explode feature in Rhino. So the minute we do that, that's going to break up all of our surfaces into individuals. We've got all these trims that need to go, all these splits that need to go, another surface knit that's in there. So I'm going to say yes to all, and that's going to start taking those things out. So you might find yourself in this scenario if you are, say you're working on a studio project and you start to build a fairly complex 3D CAD model for like an initial review or a midterm review or something like that. You feel like you're really getting some progress made. You take it to the crit and you get a whole bunch of feedback like, oh, this needs to be changed, that needs to be changed. You know, how do you take apart your SolidWorks file and start over on it with, while keeping all of the kind of the core initial sketches and line work that come along with the model. So you can see here that I just deleted a little set here of about 5 or 6 different features, and they've all turned red, and they're getting mad at me. So I'm just going to kind of open these guys all up, and kind of, if you click on them one by one, you can see kind of what they had been doing. And so they're good to go. I can delete these one by one. And pay attention to the fact that when you delete a feature that it leaves behind the sketches. And a lot of the times you'll get sketches that have this kind of mustard yellow color to them. So if that happens to you, if you ever see a sketch that has that, what it likely means is that one of the sketch relations that's running on the sketch is broken. So I'm actually going to get rid of all these because I don't need them. But if I were to say edit one of these sketches and take a look at it, you can see that same mustard color here on the end point, and you can see a coincident relation that is the same mustard brown color, whatever. So that means that this sketch was attached to a surface that I've since deleted. And so now the relationship between this point and that deleted surface is it's impossible now because the thing it was attached to is gone. And so it's just kind of showing an error. So most of the time, if you find a sketch relation that's like this, you can just, that will take it away. So there's probably more sketch relation. Yeah, see, here's another one. It just needs to go away, and you can just hit the delete button on your keyboard, and after you delete the strange colored sketch relations, your sketch will turn back to a normal color. This kind of engineer blue is what I like to call it. So it's kind of just dawned on me recently that, like, you know, you guys have been following along with me in class, and you know, I've been making these tutorials for you. I want you guys to know what's going to happen in your own files after you get out of the class. And one of the things I know will happen is you'll get broken features like this. You'll get sketches that have these warnings attached to them. And I just want to kind of lessen your kind of any sort of freak out you have about that. Here's a pretty good example. It's a very, very subtle thing you have to see. But if you look at one of these endpoints here, it's black. This one down here is, again, it's that mustard color. It's so hard to see, but I hope you guys can see it. I've been learning all about video compression and bitrate settings for class to lower the video sizes of our class recordings. And one of the things I realized about these recorded Zoom calls is that the video quality is terribly poor. And so when I've been resaving my videos, they've been getting gigantic. And so I've been, I wonder if you guys can see the level of detail that I'm trying to point out here, but hope so, because I want you guys to, all these little dings and warnings and strange colors in your design tree are fixable things. And as long as you're fresh with the delete key, then you're good to go. So these are all the setup curves that we're just about to rebuild here. These are going to build the boundary surface between our top and bottom surfaces, and I'm just deleting away, just getting rid of them. Okay, so I want to take another kind of chance to tell you more about issues that can come up when you're deleting stuff in your design tree right now. So here we are. I'm trying to delete a number of, let me try to delete the whole set. Hold on. Here, I'm going to try to delete these 4 features. And as you can see, underneath these 4 features, there's all these little bits of line work that are running on those features. I want to actually delete not only the feature, but also the sketch that goes into the feature. So when I go to delete all of these, I go delete, I get the confirm delete button or box that pops up here. And there's a little button down here that says delete child features. And so there's a term called the parent-child relationship in SolidWorks, and that means like the feature, say this boundary surface feature has several curves that are running underneath it, and the boundary surface feature would be the parent, and the sketches that are in the feature are the children. So if you're finding yourself in this scenario where you're having to delete huge sets of data from your SolidWorks model, and it's getting to be frustrating, you can always click this button right here, and it will then, you see what it did there, it will not only delete the features, but it also adds the sketches inside the feature as well. So that saves you some additional clicks. And you can see those all just go away like that. Okay, so I've got a couple of things also happening here in this model that I haven't talked to you guys about. It's called suppressed items in the design tree. So if you look at these, they're grayed out. So if you ever see anything in your design tree that's grayed out, it's worth it to just right click on the grayed out item and go to this button right here. If it says unsuppressed, that means that it's a suppressed item. So these are sketches that were originally drawn in class last time that I wanted to just get out of my way and not have affect the model when we restart. So I did something called suppress them, which is where you kind of just take the functionality away from the sketch, but you don't delete it. So it's kind of like turning the off switch on to a bit of line work or on a feature. So if I unsuppress this, then you can see that it's got a relationship to a few other sketches that get unsuppressed as well. And then there's this one here. So unsuppress, okay. And so you got that sketch there. This one's actually hidden. So another point I want to show you guys about is if we look at the icon next to these three sketches, these two, sketch 19 and sketch 20, have a blue icon next to them. And then sketch 14 here has just a very thin black line. That's because that's a hidden sketch. So you can right click on a hidden sketch and you can go to show and that'll show the sketch. Or you can right click on the sketch itself and go to hide and that'll hide the sketch. And then the icon changes in the design tree to indicate to you what sketches are shown and what sketches are hidden. So if you're modeling away and you're thinking, oh, I can't see my sketch anymore, what happened to it? Take a look over here at the design tree and just pay attention to the fact that these icons do change depending on the visual state of your line work. So we're gonna redraw all of these from scratch and we don't need these. So right now I'm just about at the point where you guys should all be with your own file if you want to follow along, or if you're rewatching this video later and trying to catch up, then here we are. So we should delete everything up to this point and we'll keep going with the delete. There we go, get those done. And now we're just about, I think, where we can start to start over. Now we get to start over. Let's take a look through with the timeline here to just kind of see what's needed. So I'm going to go all the way up to the top and we'll start with our 180-degree surface revolve. And then we put this sketch over the top of it to split out a section to blend onto. If you notice, right, we don't see the sketch in the workspace, but looking at the icon, it's a thin black line, so that means it's a hidden sketch. So we can right click and show that sketch just to get a better sense of how it looks. Okay, perfect. And then we do our split and that gives us this part line right here. And then we add these two planes, which are also hidden. So I'm going to re-show these to show you guys what happens to them. So again, the icon in the design tree will change depending on whether an item is visible or invisible. And it goes for sketches, features, it goes for planes. You can see here that now that these two are visible, this icon changes to a darker blue. So I'd like it if you guys got really, really good at, you know, glancing over at your design tree and getting a pretty good sense of how a whole model is built. I would do this in class nonstop if we were working together in the computer lab where, you know, a hand goes up across the room, somebody says, hey, I'm having trouble. I go over, I take a look, and, you know, I can glance at somebody's design tree and pretty much, you know, see a model built from just the design tree based on just memorization of how all these icons work. For instance, here's the image one. This again has the thin line sketch icon. That means that's a hidden item in the tree. So there we go. Okay, so after we do that split operation, then it's down to It says here, what did we do? We did a surface extrude. Okay, let's show that one. All right, so this was the bit where we did a surface extrude that was kind of in the center line, headed over so that we'd have a secondary ability to blend on that center line. This top surface we're trying to make is really, really important for all of our rendering hopes and dreams on this project. And we don't want to have any messed up center lines, and we want a nice flow across the top of the model. So here's the boundary surface we all remember making. And this one, I'm actually going to take another look at it because I was looking at mine in one of the demos that I made. Hold on while I just stop rambling for a second and take a little personal tangent on maybe fixing my model a bit, and I'll show you guys the ropes. I've got the evaluate tab here, and I've got a curvature button, which can kind of reveal the flow across a seam. And I did notice this item here. I think I talked about it in last class and said it's not really that big a deal, but it could be better, you know. There is a little bit of a hiccup in the surface right there. So if I wanted to dig back into that, I could always just go to, turn it back off, go back into the two sketches that are running inside of this boundary surface and edit them as needed. So I think that if I edit the sketch here, I'll get to the sketch that's flowing into this surface here. So I just want to click on that guy and take a look at some of the different sketch relations that are running on this guy. I've got equal curvature and I've got tangent as well. So that's two sketch relations that are kind of doing the same thing. So I'm actually going to take off the tangent one and just leave behind the curvature one. Let's turn that back on. Yeah, see, so if you think that you add this curvature flow to the lines that it matches with this curve here, having the highest level of blend applied to your sketch and the second highest level of blend, it's two different levels of blend. It's kind of repetitive. So let's exit out of that and turn curvature back on. It adjusts it a little bit. It seems to have gotten a little less dark. Edit the sketch again. Oh, that's the back one. Yeah, let's edit this guy. So I'm just going to look normal too here. Flip my model upside down. And so just like everything in SolidWorks, you know, if you want to improve something, just redo it. So I'm going to click this sketch. I'm going to take off the sketch relations. That's going to give me the ability to kind of wiggle this curve, hopefully. There she goes. No. It's changed shape. It's still not better. Okay. Well, anyway, I'm just getting distracted. Sorry, guys. Let me stay focused on what we're up to. We'll fix that later. A little blur tool in Photoshop. Okay, so then we talked about this. These construction surfaces that sit on the center line, they can go away. You don't want to get rid of them completely. They are playing a role in the flow of this boundary surface. So they do need to stay in the mix, but they don't need to be visible. So you can right click on those and hide them. There's our boundary surface looking good. Okay, cool. So then we've got our surface trim here and our surface trim here. And we're basically all the way back to the start of last class now. So sketch number 10 here and sketch 13 are going to be gold for us because we're going to use those two sketches to build and trim most of the rest of our surfaces here. So let's do that. So we'll also be using the sketch from our original surface revolve. That's this one. Remember this one from way back when we started this project? It's got this nice smooth flowing curve here. It's got a dotted line across here with a center line to revolve around. So that's where we're starting. Where we're really going to start here is cleaning the workspace up and making it fresh for a bit of heavy CAD. So we'll just hide the additional planes, right click on them and hide them. This is a sketch we'll use later on to trim our bottom surface. So we're just going to hide that, get it out of our way. And this is about as clean scenario as we could ask for. So I'm going to do another surface revolve now, another 180-degree surface revolve. And on that bottom one, I'm gonna keep it separate just so we can practice using the knit tool. So let's do this. So I'm gonna go up here to surfaces and I'm gonna go to Revolve Surface. I'm not gonna hit anything. It's gonna ask me, hey, what do you wanna revolve? Open up the design tree, go to the original surface revolve, open that up, and you can get to the sketch 4. That's the one I want to revolve. It's not going to fire it off immediately. I have to give it the axis again, and so that's why we added the axis into the into that actual line work. So it's this line we want to spin around, and we have to be really careful at this point because if you can see, this is where SolidWorks gets a kind of mind of its own. When we started using SolidWorks, I told you guys, it's not like Rhino where you have to hit a hotkey to get it to go 360. It kind of always does 360 on its own. So we want it to just go 180. So we really don't want to duplicate this revolved surface on top of the other surface. So we want this to be 180. So I'm going to type in 180. Okay. And we want to flip the rotation so that it's rotating on the bottom and not over the first one. So the button for that is here, called reverse direction. It's under the direction 1 tab. And that's that. So now you can see that sitting together. That's perfect. Now the reason I keep these two top and bottom surfaces separate is because what we're doing is complex. It's, you know, kind of messes with your mind when you're flowing around in 3D space and trying to, especially when you're in kind of like hidden line mode, or if you're in wireframe mode and you're spinning this thing around all different directions, it's really hard to tell which way is up. And so it's nice to be able to hide portions of the model to keep your workspace and your brain from overloading. So we're going to be primarily just duplicating this technique here on the bottom right now. If you know how to do that, you can dive in and go at your own pace. If you want to see me do it, here we go. So the only difference is that this time when we do it, we have a stash of pre-built curves, and those can be used to duplicate the technique down onto the bottom. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and turn on surface, and I'm going to turn on split under direct editing. We'll go split. I'm going to turn on trim tools, and then I'm going to go to the sketch. That's this, remember this rectangular sketch here, sketch 5. I could name that split curve if I wanted at this point. So I'm going to enter that in as the trim tool. And then I'm going to go down here to selected bodies, and I'm just going to select the bottom. I'm going to turn the model up like this because I really want to see this happen. Since it's happening on the bottom of the model, you really want to confirm that it's done its job right. I'm going to go cut bodies and give that a little spin around. And that's a perfect duplicate of what we have on the top. So we'll collect up those two pieces. Nice, very good. And we'll say okay. Perfect, okay. So now's the part where we can hide the top of the model. So if you are like me and you kind of have trouble determining which surface is which, just click on it and it'll highlight here in the surface bodies folder at the top of your design tree, and you can hide that as needed. All of these surfaces you can also hide from right in here. Cool. So the other challenge of today's attempts will be to work this model upside down. So we're further moving away from the standard top, front, side, standard build angles for the model. We're really breaking out of that mold now and getting into working the model from all different angles. So now in the first time that we did this, we added plane 1 and we added plane 2. And I think, as I've mentioned a bunch of times, these planes, they do extend out in space infinitely. You guys have probably figured that out by now. So if we want to add some connector lines here, we'll just use those same planes as before. We're going to right click on plane 1, make a sketch. And this time I'm going to use my marking menu. I'm going to click and drag down and to the right to grab the Spline Tool. It's this guy. And I'm going to just randomly plop down a spline that's going to attach to the right angle right here of the split. And then this very precisely, I'm going to drag around until I see it line up with that origin. So I'm looking for that preview line. I'm going to look normal too. And for me, it's just easier to look at it from this angle here because it's more natural. So just notice what we've done there, right? We were able to create a sketch on plane 2, which landed down here at the bottom of the design tree. Okay, so one of the things that we don't have, if we just take a look at other bits of the model really quick. Yeah. Okay. So we don't have a front view of this, but we know that we want this bottom half of the design to really come up very close to this origin. Okay, so we might even go as far as to put a dimension on there. So if I grab my Smart Dimension tool, go from the origin to here, maybe a dimension of, say, I don't know, 5 or 6. Let's do 5. Okay. Because the rest of this is built all up, and we know that doesn't look so hot when we mirror it. So we want to have a lot of heft up here on the top and a thin little profile down here at the bottom. And so about 5 millimeters should do the trick. So just drop that dimension tool like that, and I'm going to grab this curve like this, and I'm just going to wiggle the line around, and I'm watching this curve here. This is the split line I'm going to want to blend to. So I'm just kind of, in my brain, I'm imagining, okay, let's pretend I'm here, I'm on a skateboard or something, I'm flowing up here. If I launch off this line, which direction does this line go? I'm going to try to get it as close to eyeballed as possible on one end. And then here on the other end, I'm going to grab the other end, and I'm going to do the same, where I'm going to pull it up until it's almost horizontal. Because remember, we're going to mirror across this later. And then I'm going to confirm it here with a horizontal sketch relation. That's a right click. Okay. There's our horizontal sketch relation there. Really hides itself. I've mentioned this, my number one complaint with SolidWorks 2020 is the fact that you don't see those sketch relations until you click on the actual item where they are and then look over here. So I lock one end of the curve to the center line, and the other one I'm going to adjust and massage. Curvature massaging is what they call it in Alias, when you're adjusting surfaces and curves to come together to flow well into each other. So might be worth to even zoom in a little bit, and just until you think that looks just about right, And then, you know, also pull back on the entire design overall and just kind of see like, how does this line kind of feel if it were to be filled in and part of the overall design. You want every line you draw to be attractive. So again, I'm gonna click the main part of the curve here, and I'm gonna click this edge. This is the edge for the split that we did. You can do it from any angle. Okay, and we're gonna put the curvature, the C equals. All right, now this one's giving us a bit of a problem. It's turning itself red, and so that's okay. What we can do is just delete it.
Excuse me, Jim. Could
Yeah.
you do that move again?
Yeah, sure. I have to anyway because it didn't work.
Did you click Control?
I did. Yep.
Oh, okay.
So I'll go Control, and then I'm going to hit the edge here. There we go. So it'll give you this little lightning bolt thing to show you that it's got curvature and tangency on it. You can see here the two relations that are on there are listed here on the left side. There you go. There's quite a few of them on there. So that's that. We remember this from last time. Okay, so I'm done with that sketch there. Everything's good. Just gonna look at it normal too one more time just to confirm that I like the feel of it. There we go. So I'll exit that. Okay, so we're gonna do one more on the back end here, just like we did on this side up at the top. Okay, but this one we're gonna pull it way up into the arc of this thing. So
Is it important to make sure that that curve does not go into the barrel?
it sure is, yeah. It's going to feed into the barrel eventually, but we'll trim it all apart. We're going to trim out this whole interior section later. Okay, cool. Figure out which plane we're working with. Plane number 2 is the one in the back. See, already, guys, my brain is already overwhelmed with all this other stuff that's kind of in my way. There we go. So, plane number 2. All right, now I'm going to take a curve spline, just like this, and just roll down until you see it hit just that edge. Look for that little orange tick to show you that it's attached on there. It'll also give you the little yellow sketch relation to show you that it's going to add a sketch relation to hold it onto that edge. You can kind of, now look, I just clicked too fast, and look at this. This kind of thing is where trouble begins, right? I had a slip of the wrist or something. I got my microphone here, and I think the cable of the microphone pushed my wrist or something, so it's back pedal. Just delete that. Grab your spline all over again. Feel it snap to that edge. Kind of get yourself into the right orientation here so that it's lined right up with that origin again. We really need that to hit the center line kind of perfect. And then give it a spin around in 3D to kind of watch it happen. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and I'll add the smart dimension this time in 3D. Will it work? It won't work. 2020 doesn't do that. Okay, let's look normal too. Come on now. There you go. Okay, this thing's kind of way off, so. All right, so we did 5 millimeters from the origin to the end point on the previous line. Let's go a little bit shorter this time just to add some difference to the surface. So smart dimension from this point to this point. If we did 3.5, that's enough that the surface would look different under a light and shadow kind of scenario. And so we're already planning ahead for key shot. You know, we're not making a difference that would be noticeable to the eye on the product. We're making a difference that would really only catch light and shadow in the rendering scenario. So this is the kind of thing that you think about when you're working on stuff. So how can we make this thing sing when we render it? So right now I'm just flying around the model trying to get into the right kind of angle to look at this sort of scene, right? I'm trying to really see this angle of this barrel here so that I can kind of do that mental trickery where I sort of fly it off and sort of figure out what does the angle look like. And all of that's easier to do when you look normal too. I just sometimes like to go into 3D. There we go. Okay, so we'll just tighten this up with a couple of sketch relations again. Right click on that diamond and put the horizontal sketch relation. That looked like the bottom one moved, not the top one. I think something happened there. Incorrect. Yeah, see, so here we go. The top diamond, I had clicked on it, but it didn't register. It looked like the bottom one had moved. So when I click on the bottom diamond, I see the horizontal relationship I meant to add to the top one. So, oops, again. Let's actually do it this way. Let's add the curvature relationship to this edge here first, just so that's locked in place. So I'm going to click on the barrel, click on the edge, add the curvature. It slides into position, and then we'll go up here, click off the sketch so that we kind of let go of this handle and all of that. And then we'll right click on this diamond here to fill it around a little bit. Yeah, right click on that kind, add horizontal. Yeah. And let's click off the sketch again, edit it one more time, just confirm, click that diamond, there's my horizontal. Click this one, let's see. I was really hoping to see, oh, click the line, and there it is, curvature. Perfect. Okay. So we got these two lines. It's always a lot of work to draw these foundational lines. Just like last time, we're going to go through the same steps as before. We're going to connect these right on the right plane, and we'll do a little extruded surface so that we can put that four-sided scenario to work. So I'm going to go right here to my right plane. I'm going to make a sketch on the right plane, and I'm going to grab my spline. And this is also a good time when you're doing this part to see if you come over here to attach this line to these curves and it works like a charm, like it is here, where it snaps right onto that line, then you know that when you drew this line here, you finished it off right at the center line. If you guys go and you try to attach a line to these other lines and it doesn't snap to the edge, then you know that when you drew this original line, it didn't quite get in line with the center of the workspace. So you need to go back and adjust that. So I'm going to try to look at this thing from the side view. Yeah, like that. Just using spacebar here. And remember, we've got 1.5 millimeter rise between this point and this point. So it's micro, but still, it's something. And we want to give it some love. You know, we want this line here is going to define the interior surface where your thumb goes. Your thumb will wrap underneath here and it will press into the barrel of the binocular. And so having this thing purely flat is a little bit, I don't know, I don't think that would really lend itself well to ergonomics. So we'll just give it a little bow, just a little kind of arc to it. It's your choice. But the other reason for that too, like I mentioned, is because it will catch light and shadow in a more interesting way. And for rendering purposes, you know, better light and shadow play makes for a more attractive looking object. So your crits will go better. And that's always adjustable if, you know, you want to go back and fiddle with it. So while that sketch is active, I'll just go ahead and do the surface extrude. And it's always going to be set to 10. You can get away with really any amount of distance. I mean, if this thing is just 1 millimeter out, that's still going to provide you with the three-dimensionalness that you need to allow your boundary surface, which is the next step, to create a good flow. The reason I do 5 is because it's a nice kind of petite looking sketch or surface and doesn't get in the way of anything else, and it's easy to hide, and personal preference. You could make it a mile long if you want. It would provide the same thing no matter how long it is, as long as it has some distance other than 0, which is what a 2D line has. So okay, so here's our bit. So we're gonna go right here. We're ready to go with this thing. Let's take a look. Let me think for a second. Yeah. And we could go ahead and do our boundary surface in 2 different ways at this point. We could do boundary surface and we could attach it just like this, one side to the other side, and then top to bottom. And top to bottom. Boom. Or you could isolate all of those using the isolate tool. If you don't remember that, you select multiple objects, right click, and down at the bottom of the flag that pops up, it'll say isolate. So James, this is going back to kind of what you were saying before about, like, do we have to kind of keep these lines out of the barrel of the binocular? And it's, you can see here the overlap, this jagged kind of stain in the middle of our setup here is the overlap between the 2 sketches or surfaces. But remember what we're up to here. We're going to go ahead and trim these edges off like this and this, and trim away everything that's on the inside. So it's not going to be an issue when we get to the end of the line. So it's okay for it to be there now, but we'll get rid of it when we need it. So
Sounds good.
I'm gonna just set this edge here to curvature. Curvature to face. There you go. And it's interesting, you can see that little smudge there changes shape as the surface changes shape to match this edge. And I'm gonna set this one to curvature. That one's gonna yell at me, okay, so let's talk about that. Okay, well, let me click. This edge is trying to blend to a flat extruded plane. And a flat extruded plane that only goes in one direction can only accept a blend setting up to tangency. If you try to set it to curvature, you're going to get a warning. So you say okay, and just reset that to tangency, and then it goes okay. It has to do with the mathematics involved to blending to a flat plane and a bunch of stuff about Greek mathematicians that we don't want to have to get into. So that's good. So that's just what we did on the top side. We're just doing it on the bottom and we're good to go. So just like before, we're going to go ahead. We're going to hide that little transitional surface in the center. Get rid of that guy, just hide it. And good. Now we can show the rest of our work. Let's just go up here to surface bodies, start to show these, right click, go to the eyeball, show everything else, show that. Oh, we did a few too many. Hide that guy, and we'll hide this one. Perfect, okay, good. Okay, so now our goal is going to be to take the sketches that are running this trim and trim the bottom surface as well using those sketches. So we don't have to redraw them. We don't have to convert entities. We don't have to do anything, duplicate them, cut and paste them, none of that. Okay, we can just go up here to trim surface, open up the design tree, go to our two previous surface trims. Here's one. This one's on this side, so we'll select that as the trim tool. Okay. Hover over here to our model. Select the portion we want to trim off. Take it off. There's that. Okay. Again, so we're going to do that same thing again. Trim surface. We're going to go down to the first trim we did in class last time. I think it was trim number 4 for me. Here's sketch 13 that's running on trim 4. We're going to use that sketch as the trim tool, and we're going to take off this section of the surface. Good.
Hey Jim, why I cannot select the bottom little part, like back of the cylinder?
Which part are you talking about? The trim? Is that what you're saying?
You just did.
This
The
one
part,
here.
yeah, the part you just did.
Okay, so let's see here. So trim number 6 on mine.
Okay, so let me try that.
Let me run it again.
Oh, I did it.
Did it? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got to move the model around into the right angle to get at the piece that it's hitting.
Got it. Thank you, Jim.
I'm trying to avoid, jumping over into like the 2D view for us now, because that's one of the really kind of unattractive things about SolidWorks. People think that it's a very regimented front view, side view kind of thing. I'm trying to keep us in 3D mode now to just sort of show you guys what's up with real deal SolidWorks surfacing. It gets to feel a little bit more like a Rhino or something like that. Almost. So this is good. So we're in a good place now. I think it's worth a save. On my end, I'd say it's worth a save. This is a milestone point for us. So we'll go File and let's see. I've renamed this in class, so I'm good. I'll just save this. Perfect. All right. Okay, so we're almost there. What we're going to do next is we're going to try to build some little side walls between this surface and this surface here. And they're going to connect from one to the other on these edges. And we could pretty easily go ahead and use a lofted surface for this. That would be the easy way and the kind of imprecise way. It's possible, but I'll show it to you. And then we'll go the hard way, because the first time we did this tutorial on the upper half, I cut some corners and then I felt like I had to come back and show my cards. And so there's a possibility to use lofted surface, and loft connects one curve to another with a surface. So you could go lofted surface from here to here, and it'll give you one of those little directional arms, and you can pull that from one side to the other, and it'll give you a nice flat surface between those two. Okay. But this guy is tricky. in the sense that it's just flat, okay? And we really want this thing to dive in. We talked a lot about the eyebrow, remember? And so we really want that, we really want to be able to draw this profile curve so that the surface that sweeps under here has an indentation that allows for a more attractive look in this top 3/4 view. But in a pinch, with an initial concept model, with a first concept, you know, even anything besides your final model, a loft would be a good way to just, you know, design communication is theme of the class. You know, if you were going to try to say, yeah, this is a pair of binoculars, it's going to have this kind of look, and what do you think? Throw a quick loft on there. You don't even bother trim stuff together. But since this is, you know, going to be our final piece here, we want to add the extra effort. So we'll do that. And so the best way to kind of focus in on this is to isolate. We want to take this surface here and we want to isolate it with this one. So I'm just going to hold down Shift here real quick. I'm going to grab this top surface and the bottom surface. I'm going to right click and I'm going to go down to isolate. And it'll hide everything except those two surfaces. Okay, so now from here, we know that this edge and this edge are lined up with the right plane. So we can go ahead and draw on the right plane and we can draw a profile curve that gives us that angle we're looking for. So one thing when you're using isolate, figure out where your little exit isolate button is. I like to just stash it up here in the upper right-hand corner so that you can exit isolate when you want. Isolate can be one of those scary kind of tools where if you lose track of this box, you're like, where's my model? And to be honest, guys, I don't know how to exit isolation without it. So keep track of this guy. Anyway, right plane. We were going to draw on it. Let's go sketch. And I'm going to grab a curve, spline here. Come on, spline. Yeah, there you go. And I'm being careful about this too. I'm like, you know, looking for that snap. You see that little orange dot that it gives you, you know, you really want to feel that. You know, earlier in class I had done a misclick and I ended up with just a hair off of it, and it does make a difference. So click there and I'll right click and select to let go of that. And this sketch I'm going to look at it normal too. So I'm going to go side view. And this we have to look at it like this, fine. Okay, good. I'm thinking kind of about this guy in 3D now, and I'm like thinking about that brow, that like indentation here. This is adjustable later on, but you know, the more you kind of pull this in, the more of a like aggressive look you get. And it's always surprising to me how when it comes down to product design and 3D CAD model making, how, you know, there's so much emotion like loaded in these single splines. You know, if I bent this thing way like this, it would look like it was like a sniper's binoculars. But if I put it out here, it's more like a deer hunter, you know, and it's all it is a curve. So. Okay, so there's that nice little curve there. And then we'll just do the same thing to connect this edge to this edge. Now we have, if we look at the rest of the model, if we exit isolation, remember that when we drew, you have to think back in time now. Remember when we drew this split area here, and we drew these split lines and these trim lines, we did that with planes 1 and 2. Okay, so planes 1 and 2 actually extend and touch this point to this point. So that's our working plane. That's why we put those planes there. So we can go and isolate again, 1, 2. And we'll use that plane 1, to connect. Okay, so this one I'm just going to leave it straight, even though I used a spline. I'm just going to leave it straight because I'm remembering that this surface is going to dive into the rest of the barrel and it's going to get trimmed off anyway, so I don't really care about it. It's really just this line here that's going to shoot forward, and that's the one I kind of want to be defined. So we'll exit. Good, good. And we'll just do a boundary surface here. And we'll go 1, 2. Okay, we've got a twisted bit of line work here. Not the end of the world. You know what to do if you remember. If you see something like this pop up, go over here to your property manager. Okay, you've got 2 curves. One curve here and one curve here. So you want to just pick one of them, right click, and go flip connectors. Direction 2 is going to be the top and the bottom. Ooh, okay. We don't have to set any blending options for any of these 4 corners here. One thing we should do though is we should likely take this edge here and set it to something called normal to profile. So remember, if you remember, normal means looking straight on at something. And if you hit normal to profile here, all that's going to do, it's going to make this surface touch this line normal to the profile that it's drawn on. So this line is drawn on the right plane, which means it technically is facing the right plane or the center axis. So if we say normal to profile, then that means that it has a very small microscopic amount of kind of direction applied to just that edge. So that's what normal to profile means. So we'll say okay, and that's one edge right there. Very good, okay. So I'm going to stop now and just kind of look at my model and see how things are going, because I feel like these boundary surfaces take a fair bit of setup and execution. So yeah.
On that one, when you did the boundary surface, you had a normal to profile, and what were the other ones that you set it to?
They were all just set to none.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, look, it gives you a little icon. Oh, see that red icon pointing in that direction? Interesting. Cool. At any point, if you want to know, you can edit the boundary surface. It'll pull up the surface. It'll tell you these flags pop up again. If you want to change them, you could change this one to none. I just like to, you know, this saves us the trouble of putting a little construction surface on this like we did up here. Actually, you know, James, your voice is like ringing in my ear. I'm wondering down here at the bottom how we're doing if this bottom surface we've just built is going to flow well. Let's see into the bottom. Turn up. What? Just show all my. Just take a pause on modeling to kind of review our work here. It's this bit. This whole spiel that I've given about how this edge needs to flow into the barrel or not. And it's right on the line. I'm just wondering if this is going to cause us trouble. Let's look at it straight on. See, like I'm wondering if there's a gap between this edge and then this surface. We won't really know until later. one way to figure it out would be to try to trim the surface. And then we also have the option to go back to this boundary surface and just adjust that curve a little bit. In fact, if we click on the boundary surface itself, we can right click on that curve there, edit it, look normal to. Well, this is just a fun little sneak preview to see what we're going to have to do if we run into issues later on down the road. We'll see. Oh, the suspense. See this line, how it's blue here and then it goes dotted and then it comes back to being blue again? That's the thing that I'm kind of sketched about right now, guys, because, you know, if we think about the view, the kind of mode of viewing that I'm in right now, I'm in the hidden lines visible kind of mode. So then the fact that this line transforms into a dotted line means it kind of dips into that barrel a little bit. And it's scary stuff. Let's see, it's not happening on this edge. So that one's good. Better. Aha. Okay, so that fixed that problem. Let's take a look at it with shaded to see. Yeah, now that's a little bit more like it. So you were right, James. We had to pull that out a little bit. The good news is the way that we're setting up this model, we can make adjustments like that and the rest of the surfaces will follow along with us. So at any point, if we need to go and, you know, make a quick adjustment, all good. This boundary surface we just added is going to follow along with the party and the rest of the model is good as well. Just going to double check. I think that might have been the first time in my career that this visibility mode has ever helped me out. I always look at this one like, whoever uses that, there it is. I kept thinking, you could have been right. Anyway. All right, back to business, guys. Seriously. We got to add another boundary surface on this side. We got to trim it into the rest of the model. We got work to do. So we'll do the same thing we did before. We'll isolate the surfaces we want to adjust. We'll add the curves we need, and we'll do the boundary surface. Don't explode your brain. Just isolate. Oop, nope, cancel. So I'm going to take this surface and this one. I'm going to attempt to isolate them. Not seeing the isolate command.
Hey, Jim, I think you are in the isolate.
I am. Look at you. Oh, Mo, thank you so much. That last little issue really threw me. I wish this thing was red or something. I wish it was really bright and flashing and really annoying. There's so many parts of SolidWorks that are so noticeably like annoying and in your face, and this one just gets itself away. So, okay, so I'll exit this isolation mode, and then I'll enter back in with just these two. All right. Go right plane. I'm going to just grab my curve tool like this. Again, if these bits don't snap onto that endpoint, then you know you've got to go back down the Gotta go back. Again, with this very descriptive curve. Don't be afraid to spend a lot of time on your curve development. It's what makes or breaks a good model. So it should have character. Your curve should have character. Okay, so we should be able to, we're going to continue taking advantage of these planes. We used plane 1 on the front. We're going to use plane 2 here on the back. I'm going to right click here and make a sketch. I'll grab my spline tool. And again, this is totally going to be trimmed into the model back here so we can leave it as is. And look at that, SolidWorks already grabbed one when we turn on boundary surface. So we'll go front to back, top to bottom. We'll add that little normal to profile. And there's also, you know, this tangent influence slider too, which does do something. This looks, it's pretty hard to see it adjusting the surface that you're building when you're making a boundary surface. Boundary surface does have a couple of additional options to it that I haven't talked about yet that are way down here at the bottom of the preview or of the property manager. It says curvature display down here at the bottom. It's a little drop down. You can open that up and it does have the option to show you zebra stripes if you want. And you can also do this one. This one's really crazy, so hold on to your hats. Curvature combs. Ay, ay, ay. I won't even talk about this. If we were in DC5, then we'd spend a lot of time looking at stuff like this. These curvature combs are, we've seen them before on single curves, right? I did bring that up, I think, back in Rhino. But yeah, when you're dealing with a full 3D surface, a boundary surface that extends in multiple directions, yeah, you can adjust all that. So don't turn those on unless your boss walks up behind you and you want to impress him or her. Okay, good. So we're good with that. Let's just, I was going to show you tangent influence if we pull the slider a little bit. It's hard to see, but it's bending the surface here a little bit as it comes off of this, this curve here. And it's very subtle. Yeah, it's like microscopic. So, all right, we're good. That's that. So that's a good day. It's exit isolation. Things are happening. Everything's looking okay. Everything looks nice and kind of well overlapped. Seems pretty good for a trim operation now. Feeling pretty good about this build. One last thing we want to do right now is that we're going to be taking these larger surfaces, these larger boundary surfaces here, this one and this one, and we're going to be trying to trim apart this larger barrel. And if you remember back the way that we built this thing, we have this thing in 2 pieces. So we can do a surface knit now, a knit surface, and bring the 2 halves together. And that will allow us to save 1 click on our trim. So we had just knit these 2 halves together because we're going to try to do this trim operation. And in order to treat this whole tube as one, we want to be able to, with 1 click, perform the trim or the split or whatever we need to do. So we have to knit those 2 halves together. So that's where we were at. And when I did this before, there was an order of operations thing that kind of comes up where if you try to do the front half first, it doesn't work. So let me show you what I mean by that. I'm going to start with a split. And so I'm going to go to direct editing and I'm going to go to split.
Honestly, I don't know if we saw the knit surface.
Oh, really? It's just, let's see, it's just this right here. So we had just kind of made all of this back surface. Remember that part? Did you guys get?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. And then I was like, all right, next thing, now that we have the kind of two surfaces we need to split the main tube or trim it, the next move is to make this whole thing split into one. So surface knit under the surfaces tab, you guys know it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But here it is right here. I'll just go surface knit. I can edit it for you guys to show you what it should look like in the property manager. It's just going to take this top half and join it to this bottom half. And then we're good to go. So under direct editing is split, and the trim tool we want to use is going to be this back surface here, this guy. And the selected body, the one that we want to split is, I'm just going to click here. And ooh, my computer's acting funny. You see that? How it's like turning blue in all sorts of strange ways? My fan is going a lot. Let's see. All right, let's just go cut bodies. And believe it or not, this looks like it's worked despite the strangeness of my computer. Maybe I have a poltergeist or something, guys, because like after Zoom crashed, my desk lamp here started flickering, and now my computer's acting funny in SolidWorks. Who knows? Anyway, we've got this little piece here, and that's all we're trying to split apart. The rest of it can stay as one whole piece, that's fine. So we just want to make sure to collect both of those pieces. And so there's our split, and we can always kind of test our work by going up here to the surface bodies folder and just clicking on these to kind of see the results of our labor there. So we've got the main kind of barrel happening here, and then we got this little tiny tail piece back here. Okay. All right, so the next move is going to be a trim. So first we split off this little tail piece, then we trim using this front surface, and then we'll trim out the interior bit here. So watch this go down. We'll go surfaces, trim surface, trim tool is this piece right here, this boundary surface right there. And we'll say remove selections, make sure this says remove selections, and then go right in there to that. And this is the bit where we're going to delete that interior part. Again, see, that's turning blue. I don't know why. The purple thing is one we're trying to get rid of. Green.
Jim,
Yeah.
I think your move were too fast. So my screen just flashed and jumped to another view, like really quick. I cannot see the process.
Okay. Yeah, that's all good. We can do it again. Practice makes perfect. Yeah. I'm going to just delete those last few features. Let's delete. We'll do the whole deal again, because this part really is where you know, a lot of people got hung up, myself included. So we're at surface knit. We're right after the break, and so we're going to go to direct editing and go to split. We're going to flip them all around here. We're going to, under the trim tools section, we're going to use this surface, this boundary surface. It's called boundary surface 4, to split off this section here. So we'll click here under selected bodies. We'll just select this main body. It's the knit. And we'll say cut surface. And it's best to kind of roll this around into position where you can get these flags to kind of point at the model in a way that makes sense in your head. So here's the one body, and then the rest of it is the rest of it. So we'll approve those two and hit the green checkbox. And then the next one is a trim. So first split, then trim. Surfaces, trim surface. The trim tool is going to be this boundary surface here in the front, boundary surface 3. It's because it extends all the way through the model. So we're going to turn that. We're going to go to remove sections, and then we're going to click inside the hole right in here. Approve that. It turns purple. You can give it a spin if you want to see what's coming. And then when you're ready, hit the green checkbox. And there she goes. Couple more things to take care of. We're still gonna get in there and take out these bits. So those will just be trims. So we'll go trim surface. And this time we can use the main barrel here as the trim tool. Looks like it's already collected that. And we're going to go to remove sections and take out one piece at a time. This is one thing. You might try to take out both of them at the same time. Just take out one at a time. So that little half moon that's inside there, take that out. And then this one here, we'll go trim surface again. The trim tool is going to actually be this little piece here, this split thing, split 4. And we can go remove sections and take out this piece. All right. So there we go. Okay, so now we're in this, this is the crunch time of this process, right? We've got to knit everything together now and try to add some fillets on there, okay? Down here, if you guys pay attention to how this surface kind of flows, this is pretty tight in here, so we're not going to be able to get very big fillets. If we make them too big, they're going to fail. So just know that because you're dealing with small little disappearing surfaces, that they might fail at first, and we're going to have to apply again some experiments with order of operations, like which edge do we fillet first. And so when I did this before, here's how it went down. I go to knit surface, and I'll knit all of these pieces together. Ooh, hey, I found a bad one. Look at that, it happened again. Take a look at the back of your model, guys, and see if you see what I see. There's some trouble there. Let's stop with the knit surface. Okay, we got trouble in paradise. Okay, so I'm going to isolate the surface just to show off the problem. I don't know how this is happening.
Yeah, I have that one too.
You got that one too? Okay, cool. Yeah, so we can use the same set of trim sketches that we've been using throughout this kind of build to take that off, because if we exit isolate, you see there's this trim line here that's taken from trim number 1, and it follows right along here. So that can be the tool we can use to cut that little piece off. So I'll isolate the bad surface so we can watch this thing happen. See, what's the best way to look at it? I don't quite know. There it is from the top view. There we go. So there's this sketch from looking down straight. So we're going to go to trim surface, and the trim tool will be this line. And then we're going to remove sections, take off that bit. I'm glad I caught that. That would be one of those things, that's just,
Now that line is still like cut. Is that a problem?
Which line?
The line underneath your binoculars from the curve tool, not when you split the body, but when you like made the other surface toward the center, the edge of the triangle is still there from like not the edge of the triangle, but that little curve. Like if you zoom in right where the triangle was.
Oh, here?
Yeah. You still have like a tiny line there. If you hover over it, it turns orange, like really small, that.
I think that's just left behind from the new trim edge. So there's the old trim edge that didn't get there, and then there's the new one. It should be okay. Let's try it and see what we get. This is where we're going to find out what kind of trouble it's going to cause us. So we were just knitting everything together and we kind of made that discovery. So we'll get back to knitting. Let's knit this to this to this. At this point in a model like this, I get so kind of personally attached to the amount of work it's taken to make all of these surfaces, these really organic surfaces, that I like to go around and just manually add them each one by one into the knit surface. But another way to do this is to clear the selections. You can just throw on knit surface. And if you got confidence in yourself, you can just grab the whole bit like that. I mean, you guys should be impressed with yourselves. I mean, we're dealing with a model here in SolidWorks that has no straight edges on it whatsoever, except for the 2 ellipses in the front and back. And even that is adjusted. So we'll knit those together. It works. Let's get right in on the problem area that was here. So I'm going to take a fillet. I'm going to take a 1 millimeter fillet. And I'm going to throw it right on this edge. And you see what it'll do. It kind of stops right as it gets to that area that was trimmed. But hey, fine with me. If it flows well, and not to mention it's on the bottom of the model, hey, I don't think it's going to cause us any sort of issue. The way to check it will be to take your model into KeyShot, throw some high gloss black paint on it, shine a light right on it, and fiddle the light around and see if it gives a hiccup. But yeah, order of operations. Let's take care of these interior curves first. I'm gonna get frisky here and set the type of fillet to curvature continuous. And I might even try to go up to 2 millimeters. Ooh, it's feeling good. And that 2 millimeter is it's gonna flow this a little bit more into the area. You'll have the ability to adjust this. I'm gonna leave that as its own fillet on its own because that's a good one. So there's one. Let's look at this. Edges off. Yeah, pretty good. Disappears. It's a disappearing edge. Nice flow. Cool.
Jim, after
Yeah.
I knit everything, when I up and then I hit the fillet, nothing happened.
What size fillet is it? Is it a 10 millimeter fillet? Because they always start at
No. No matter I put 10 or 1, there's nothing changed. There is one data line.
there's a dotted line. Yeah, that's the issue we're looking to avoid. I would go back to your knit and try to run the knit again. So take the fillet off and try to run the knit again.
Okay, let me try.
Just try to pay attention to your steps. You're going to have to step back one by one to see where issues came up. I'll keep going.
Are we knit everything?
Yeah, all of them. Yep, the whole
Okay.
Yep. So I'm going to put a 1 millimeter fillet on the back here. And I'll do this interior one first. And after I add it, I'll bump it up a little just to see what I can get away with. That's a 5 millimeter fillet, 2, 3, yeah. You guys can decide for yourselves on what size fillets you want to outfit your model with. And you know, your model is parametric. So if we get this into KeyShot and you want to make adjustments, you open the file here in SolidWorks and then update in KeyShot. But each of these fillets that we're adding now should be done in its own fillet. So I'm going to keep trying to bump them up to as big of flow as I can. And I'm leaving the curvature continuous setting on just because it's the highest level of flow. So just kind of playing to see what I can get away with. go here to the front. There you go. I think I've been teaching SolidWorks since 2016, and there's years and years, guys, where this sort of degenerate corner would never have worked in SolidWorks. We'd have to manually build all of these surfaces by ourselves. And so I would never have done a project like that required disappearing edges back then. The mathematics are just getting better, and that's why you can do stuff like this. Keep going with the fillets. We'll start them at 1. They're so friendly how they work. There's that one. And one more. These two on the bottom, I'll try to bump those up a little bit. Just for looks. Oh my God. It'll work. So it gets really, for me, it gets exciting to think about rendering this model out in KeyShot and having it live linked to SolidWorks and having this model set up in a way where, you know, we can make adjustments like this and have them transfer right over to KeyShot. So this thing is done as is. The next moves for us is going to be to just mirror it and take a look at what we've got. So I'm going to save my work at this point. I'm at R7 in class, saved. Take a look at my design tree a little bit. See, we're down to 1 surface body and just those 2 surface extrudes that we used in the center line. So very clean, very good stuff. At this point, we're all the way caught up with where I said we were going to go in class. So now we can get back onto the topic at hand, is trying to mirror this thing. So we're going to mirror it, and we're going to mirror across the right plane. It's our center line. And we're going to say bodies to mirror. Be careful when you mirror, guys, because a lot of times when you mirror, it'll start out set to features to mirror. And it's hard to visually notice that the thing we're trying to do here is a body. We're trying to mirror the surface body. Surface body here. So you got to go down to bodies to mirror. And you can just click on the one body and it'll mirror across. And we've got an option here to merge solids or knit surfaces. So we could actually knit this together right here and save us an item in the design tree later on down the road. So we would definitely want to knit this together now to keep a more efficient and a cleaner SolidWorks file. So we'll say knit surfaces. That's this little check here. And that will knit everything. You can again check your surface bodies folder and you should have 1 visible surface body to show you that that knit worked. And then the last thing to do for this model is going to be to cap the front ends. So if you want to cap a flat surface, and these surfaces are definitely flat, the tool is Planar Surface. Planar Surface recognizes a flat hole and closes it for you. So we'll do Planar Surface, and we'll click this and this. Perfect. All right, now that we've done our mirror, we can hide our center line. Finally, after all this work and all this trial and error, we can right click and hide the center line. We don't need it anymore because now we have the model's center line to show us. So on the back end, I want to investigate a little bit. I'm actually going to hit my space bar and I'm going to fly up over the model. I'm going to zoom in on this area. So here we are. I want to zoom in, and I think that I see like a wobble. You see this, guys? You see? I did, like I said, I practiced a little on this before class, and when I finished off my model, I realized that there's a little wobble that's been created from just this whole, you know, double curvature continuous fillet flowing right to the edge here. It's just not flat. The way I discovered that was by trying to use the Planar Surface tool to cap this edge. So I'll show you what I did. Don't follow along, but I went to Planar Surface, and I was like, oh, I gotta click all these little edges. And you see how it collects most of them, but not this one. Like I try to add that to the mix, and it won't add. That's a typical SolidWorks fail for you, where you're trying to do something that should work really easy. Let's see down here too. There's 1, 2, it's not adding. And so you're like, oh, why can't I click that? I wonder what's wrong. So you go, okay, and it says, planar surfaces cannot be created due to non-planar selection of open surface. Typical SolidWorks, hardly understandable rebuild error. So this is not the worst news in the world. I'm thinking the best way to handle it is going to be, again, to just fly up over the model. Just like we've done in a lot of different scenarios like this, we'll just strike a flat, straight line across this whole setup here. And we'll just go for a trim and just trim off this microscopic little hump that's on there. But we want to make things easy for ourselves, and we want to use SolidWorks the way it's supposed to be used. So what that means is that we're going to actually take our timeline here, and we're going to roll the timeline up to before the mirror. Okay, and we're going to go back in time here. And we're just going to do it to one side, and then we're going to pull the mirror down, or pull the timeline down past the mirror, and it'll bring that edit over with the mirror. Okay, so always in SolidWorks, you're going back and forth in time. It's real fun. So the surface that would be considered the top plane is actually the front plane for us. So I'm going to go to front plane. I'm going to make a sketch. I'm going to look at this from the top down. I'm going to grab a straight line. I'm going to find an edge if I can. Yeah, here's one. I'm going to pull down from there just to get a guideline. I'm going to click once and then strike a line all the way over the model. Anytime you do these kind of trim bits, you know. And you can see, look at this little sliver we have to take off. How annoying is that? But it's mandatory. I mean, we need that. So, oof. I think what I'm going to do here in this setup is, instead of doing a trim where I use this line as the trim tool, and then I zoom in and take off that little sliver by hand, I'm going to actually do it a different way, where I do the trim, but instead of saying remove selections, I'm going to say keep selections, and I'm going to click the whole body here, and I'm going to tell SolidWorks to keep this bit and delete everything else, because don't forget, I'm not sure of it because it's so small, but I think there's another wobble down here. Okay. Let me look. Let's look at it from the bottom and zoom in on that problem area. I don't know. The fact that I don't know is the reason why I'm going to do it this way instead. So let me show you that. So watch it from the top down. zoom in on the problem area. And I'm going to say trim surface. It collects the sketch. I'm going to set it to keep selections, and I'm going to click the main model. It turns purple. But that little piece doesn't, the little blue piece right there. I don't know what all this jig-jaggy stuff is, but you know, hey, I just know I'm going to keep the main bit and say, okay. And it takes it off. There we go. And if there was a problem down here at the bottom, then hopefully it's removed it as well. The way to test it is to use the Planar Surface tool. And the Planar Surface tool is, you know, annoying in this scenario because there's so many little bits. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, it's not grabbing that one. Danger, danger. Okay, it could be even worse than I thought. Okay, so let's try it. Get a fail. Don't freak out. Let's just think of a plan B. Okay, here's our plan B. We're just going to readjust that trim curve so that it's inset over the model a little bit. Because here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking down here at the bottom, I can't tell because it's so microscopically small. But I'm thinking that it's actually dipping in as opposed to sticking out. And so when we did that trim curve the first time, we missed the indentation as opposed to the thing that's sticking out. But now that we have a running curve here in our trim, we have this sketch that's sitting pretty, doing a trim. All we have to do is edit its position. We will have to take this sketch relation off because remember, this sketch relation is holding the sketch to this edge right here. So if we try to move this, it's going to say, no, you can't do that. So click the sketch, look for the sketch relation, take it off, and just put this over just a little bit. I mean, we don't know how far over we need to go, but we know that we're going to try to start small. So I don't know how far over that is, maybe 1/4 of a millimeter. You can eyeball it and no one will ever know. Okay, we'll just keep it to ourselves that we had to make this little move. I've done this on professional models before, guys. There's little, you know, hairline trims off of stuff to get stuff tooling ready and everything. And it's like, I know that even the engineers wouldn't be able to see it. So, and if the question ever comes up, it's justifiable to make the model perfect. So that just worked. So let's try it again. And this time, let's try it a different way as opposed to clicking. Let's start our trims, our planar surface on this edge. 1, 2. Now they add 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and it worked. Okay, so this is a fantastic example of the kind of annoying things that you're going to get to when you are near the end of a complex model. And so I want you guys to look out for this. If you come to a spot where a simple tool like Planar Surface is not working in a scenario where it should be, then you have to drill down into the micro nano details. Okay. So that's using Planar Surface. Another way to do that would have been like this. Let me show you another way to cap that hole. I'll take off the Planar Surface. I'll use the sketch from the trim for an extruded surface that goes in 2 different directions. Now we just used that sketch to trim the back of this model off, so we know that sketch is right at the edge of the model. We take that, that's a flat plane. We'll go to trim. We'll use the trim tool of this body to keep selections, and we'll keep the hole in the middle and let it take away the rest. Up to you on which one you use, but it's another example of using a sketch that's running within another feature for a new feature, and it's an alternative to using Planar Surface, which required us to do a lot of little tiny clicks. So we're so close now, guys. Look at this. Okay, we're going to pull the tree down to the bottom here. I'm going to take my timeline bar and I'm going to pull it all the way past the mirror. The mirror comes around. It looks like we didn't get our surface trim with the mirror, so I'm just gonna, let's see, I'm just gonna go to this mirror and I'm gonna edit the mirror, okay? And then I'm gonna go down to the bottom of the tree and I'm gonna add this surface trim. Here it is, surface trim 13 is the cap on that hole. I'm gonna add it to the mix. And will it work? No, it won't work because it's not knit into the body, and we're doing a body mirror, aren't we? So, wah, wah, wah. Okay, never mind. Don't listen to me. Go knit surface, knit the new cap into the body. Roll your little timeline up. Okay, back to here. Knit the thing together into one whole piece. Then pull down through your mirror, and the mirror will bring the new sketch across, or the new surface across. And there's our caps there, which need to get knit into the rest of the body. And so this is like moment of truth, guys, okay? Because once we knit this surface, these two surfaces into the rest of this body, we now have a fully watertight model. This is what all 3D CAD designers aspire to. We can go here in the knit tool to create solid, and we can say create solid. And look at our design tree. We now have no surface bodies. All we have is a solid body, which is the solid model that we've built. Okay, so that is exactly where we want to be. Let's take a look at this thing. Oh my gosh, looking so good. I'm going to take it over to Keyshot now and just take a look at it and kind of give it the once over. And then we're going to talk about homework and what is next on this model. So let's save our work if you're following along, and if not, save at home as needed. And let's fire off Keyshot. We're going to leave the SolidWorks file open in the background of Keyshot. I know I've recommended not doing that in the past because it'll crash your computer, and if it does, don't do it. But if you can, see what we get. Looking clean. It's looking good on the back. It's not looking exactly like the item that we're trying to build, but it's definitely looking cool. Like the cool factor is there, and the storyline of this bottom edge is different than the top. That's all happening. One thing about the way that we're building this model here is that with it standing straight up like this, we're not really seeing the best view of it. So I'm going to right click and say move model. I'm just going to kind of move it up into a cool three-quarter kind of angle. Yeah, something like that. There we go. It's looking nice. Okay, so somewhere About like that, I think. Throw some materials on here. Most unforgiving is gloss black paint. Okay, that's going to really show off the seam across the center line and across all of those edges that we added, and it's looking good. The way that this light and shadow is able to fall across the center line and you can't even see it, that's good. The way that these disappearing edges can have light shining right over them, and you can't tell that it's all built in different panels, that's awesome. These fillets that we added with the curvature continuous setting, the fact that you can't tell that they're fillets, that they look actually built into the model, that's awesome. Full disclosure, guys, I do see a little edge issue right here, but that's fine for where we're at, and it would take too much time to fix. Other stuff that I think is working really well is that with our new build, we've got that cool light and shadow thing that I was talking about was going to happen. Like the way that the light is jumping around in here, it's looking cool, it's looking ghosty, and you know, like you have the option to kind of fill that cavity with shadow and have little glimmers of light shining in there with little highlights peeking in, or you can shine a bunch of light in there and it has another look to it completely. But yeah, this whole top edge right here, how this is flowing is looking fantastic. Very good. I think I'm just gonna try one thing while we're here. I'm gonna go over to SolidWorks. I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna click on one of these fillets. Remember this fillet we did? You can click right on that edge for that fillet and it'll highlight it in your design tree and you can edit that feature. I just want to test. Okay, it brings us back in time to when we were here. Okay, I just want to test and see what happens if I say I put a 5mm fillet there. Will it work? No. How about a 4? All right, well, try 3. Also 3 is not working. So 2's as big as we can go. How about 2.5? All right, so make that a little bigger. 3, no worky. All right. All that just for for a little 0.5mm. Let's keep going. Let's say what happens if we edit this guy. This time we'll just edit the feature right here in the design area. Make this one 4. Okay, so that's a pretty drastic difference. So let's see how it looks. I'm going to go ahead and jump back over here to Keyshot. I'm going to go to import. I'm going to import the same model on top of itself right here. It's going to say update geometry instead of add to scene. Let's try that one more time. Okay, so here's our new fillet. So it looks worse if you ask me, but the cool factor of having a live link between SolidWorks and Keyshot is pretty awesome. To be able to sit there and nudge around little details and get them to update live, that's super awesome. This fillet looks lousy, it looks big, and it looks ugly, and it sticks out like a sore thumb, and it kind of emphasizes this transitional issue that we have right here. So the only thing this does is maybe illustrate how you really want to keep it light with your fillets and keep them small. So let's do that. I'll go back to this thing. Maybe I'll even do this. I'll go undo. Okay. And maybe it's even too big. Let me just make it a little touch smaller. Maybe it needs to be like 1.5. You can just sit here and test fillet size all day. I follow this guy, Alberto, who's head of design at Google, and one of the things he was showing off was this little cube that he made that had different size fillets on each corner of the, or each edge in each corner of the cube. And then he had it milled out of like titanium or something because he works at Google, and he just probably gave it to the titanium miller across the street. But it was the coolest little cube, and it was a perfect kind of thing to bring out during meetings when you get into these arguments about fillets and stuff like that. You know, what's better, 1.5 or 2 millimeter fillets? It can be like a week-long conversation. So we'll save that, and we'll go over to Keyshot, and we'll update the model. Yeah, see, look at how that 1.5 looks so much slicker. All right, cool. This looks clean down here. All right, so enough with Keyshot. I think this is going to make for kick-ass rendering. So I'm just going to bail out of that. I'm going to save my work here. And then what we can do here is just, let's all just take a quick little look at the image we've been tracing. Okay. All right, so the next bits of this build are going to be pretty simple, guys. We're going to be trying to build these eye holes and whatever these things are called, these bits up here at the top. They're just simple revolves, nothing too difficult. These little bits in here are all going to be splits with offset surfaces and stuff. I'm not going to stick you guys to it as far as homework between now and Thursday, but I'll do one little demo just really quick to show you how to get this done. If you feel like you want to take the extra step forward, I'm just going to leave you guys with the challenge of getting yourselves, you know, at least to this point. So if you've been following along, then great, you're there. If you haven't, then get here and be ready to add some fillets or get ready to add some revolves to make those little transitions or those little eye things that we need. So we finally get to turn on our image again. And, you know, the thing about this is really that, you know, our origin is way down here, and we've got a couple of additional planes we've made. But in order to get this to kind of like, you know, work right, like we're going to need to get more comfortable with kind of working outside of the typical XYZ axis and stuff. For these main revolves here, we can get those done by just drawing on the front plane, which is right here. So we just go here to sketch, and let's see, we'll just make one of them. And here we are again in this kind of situation where, you know, the model that we've built is a little off from the image. So I'm just going to take a straight line, and I'm actually going to start my kind of build right off of this area here. And I'm going to have to kind of use the image as inspiration to go up and then over. And I'm very carefully waiting for the guideline from this point up to here to kind of show me where to strike my line. Here's a fun fact. If this ever happens to you guys, this is a thing that can happen with SolidWorks. You guys want to see an advanced part modeling thing? I got this from Go Engineer. It's kind of silly. So if you're drawing straight lines in SolidWorks, like we are here, and you click and you want to make another straight line, you just pull off another straight line. But if you start to draw the straight line and then bring your mouse back to the point that you just set and touch it and then arc your line off, it'll start to do an arc. So depending on how you pull off of this point, you can transform your line from the line tool to an arc tool. It's annoying because it's so rarely used, but if you're an engineer and you're constantly drawing straight lines all day and occasionally an arc here or there, then it's gold. Okay, so this is this, and I am just going to kind of freestyle this line out here into space. And what I'll do here is I'll take another line. I'm going to take this time I'll take a center line, and I'm just going to strike a center line from one edge of this to the other edge of the model. This center line is going to be solely for the purpose of finding the center point of my revolve, which is the center point of this line. So it's right there. So I'll take another center line, just draw it straight up from there. Okay, I'll draw it, actually I'll pull it all the way up, and then we'll take trim entities, we'll trim off this tail, like that. So we're good to go. We're doing theoretical modeling on these very geometric parts here, so even though we have a round we're going to build to a sharp edge, it's going to be a solid this time, okay? We're going to build a solid, and we have to be careful now because we've solidified the rest of our model, but yet we want to keep the distance or the separation between the new solid we're about to build and the old one we've built. So we're going to want to treat these differently, different materials in KeyShot. We're planning ahead for modeling or for rendering now. So we're back to the Features tab. We're doing Revolve Surface again. It's going to wind us to this is an open sketch. We'll say, go ahead and close it. Okay, it's really not liking that. Never mind. Cranky SolidWorks. I can fix you. Well, it wants to close this up, so let's just give it what it wants and let it be happy. So I just draw a line to the center point and up from there and do a revolve boss space. It's been so long since we worked on a solid. SolidWorks just isn't in the mood. Cool. Okay, so what did I do right? What did I do wrong? I did the revolve, but I forgot to separate it from the main body, so it's been molded into the other. So I'm going to right click on the feature, and I'm going to uncheck merge result. Don't forget. That's going to give us an additional solid body for this part. Okay. So that's a place you could take it if you wanted to go further. Okay. If you really want to start to build in some crazy detail to this thing, go all the way back to where we started class, where we were looking at the website for this $1,300 pair of binoculars. These shots here were the main inspiration behind what led to today's class, this one in particular, and then, you know, there's much more in here. Try to look at some of these product photos and see what kind of detail you can see. If I look closely, there's a lot of detail in here that we can't see inside SolidWorks because we got the transparency so low and stuff like that. So you should have these photos in your kit. And this stuff is easy, revolves, and this is a circular pattern. We'll do all this in class, but you can get ahead of class by doing the work on your own and being ready with this stuff done. And you know, we've got a few weeks left working on this. It's going to be just tightening up our, you know, CAD model. Now that we've got the really hard surfacing stuff done, the rest of it is SolidWorks basics, you know. So we're just going to make this the absolute best model we possibly can. We've still got to add lenses inside of here and stuff, so there's plenty to keep us busy, but none of it is out of your wheelhouse considering what you've done so far in the class. So save your work if you haven't. And despite a mid-class crash, That's it. We are done, guys.